like sometimes people see other people and they're like, oh, that's an overnight success. And they all of a sudden see this person. Like you see them for the first time, right? Pinchas was like that moment everybody saw him. And it was just that one moment and it changed his life. The thing is becoming that person doesn't happen overnight. Even though the recognition isn't there always, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. So when we think about the past, the present, the future, a lot of what we feel when we feel defeat, when we feel like there's a long road ahead, is that we don't feel like we have the strength to do these great things, whatever those things are that we desire. And that in itself will create this sense of defeat within. And it feels like it's so difficult to achieve what we want to achieve or we desire. But when we think of it, when we think about any kind of achievement, right? He grabbed the sword, he did what he did, and there was precision and accuracy. There are definitely miracles involved. But there was a sense of sharpness within. There was a sense of clarity that was non-negotiable within himself because of a practice that he's built day in, day out. It wasn't like this heroic act that just showed up out of nowhere. So when we want to achieve something in our life, when we have a desire to build on something, we build it like it's like building any muscles, right? So if you think about the muscles, like from a fitness perspective, it's very important to build muscle. And part of building muscle is building range. So when you're building muscle, it's really important to make sure that the muscle itself is not only stiff, but there's flexibility in it as well. So we're not trying to create like a block of strength. We're trying to create something that can move and is malleable and is flexible, but also strong. And that's a lot more tricky than just, I guess, forming a rock. Because a rock is just, it's strong, it's not flexible, right? So when we're building on our midos, right? Because it ends up boiling down to midos. And when we think of midos are the translation of midos is mida is a measurement. When you're able to perform with precision, right? The precision in itself is mida, is the mida. It's an accuracy. It's like if you cook and bake, if you've cooked and baked for a while, sometimes you don't need exact measurements because your precision is so accurate that you're able to know without knowing because you've been doing it for so long. So when we're trying to build the self, it's these like small increments of muscle building, small increments where we're building on specific characteristics that build us as a human to come to a very specific point. Like Esther in the Megillah also had a moment like that. I think Mordechai said to her, like, I think it was Mordechai, he said, like, you know, maybe this is you know, this is what all of this was for. Like, it's like everything brought you to this moment. And if you're not going to be able to perform in that moment, then all of that is for nothing. Sometimes in our life, we find that there's a fear in that performance, or fear in the training. But going back to the art of archery with the sword, the archer, right? So he talks about the archer, and then he talks about the swordsman. When the master is completely finished teaching the swordsman, he says to him, he's like, there's always going to be somebody better, right? So the same with Pinchas. Like, it's not like he was the best at what he did. It was that he had that soul within him. So like the master tells the swordsman, he says, there will always be somebody more nimble, somebody more faster than you, somebody tall, bigger than you, stronger than you. What makes you the swordsman? What makes you a master swordsman is being able to tap into your soul, go deep within, and find your internal guide, and not get distracted by the fear or the sense of overwhelmingness that comes up from all the stuff around you. So coming back to midos and measurements, those measurements have to be taken by you. They can't be taken by somebody else. It's learning the guidelines of those measurements, of what it is that you want to grow and build and measure, right? For so many of us, we will value even our own spirituality in comparison to somebody else's. Or we'll just take what we were given from a school perspective of what did we learn in the education system, rather than taking our own initiative to investigate, to notice what doesn't feel right, where do I feel like I need improvement, where is it that I don't have enough clarity, where can I sharpen my muscles, and investigate and do your own research and find out, rather than rely on somebody else's words. So the differentiator between somebody that ends up mastering something, right? So like that was, I think more than anything else, that was, it's one of the greatest stories in history. Because he became, right, Pinchas Eliyahu. He's like a huge part of who we are, of history, and somebody we all, like, if you know, he comes to every bris and all of that. So the thing is it's not like it's just magic. It's not like these kind of things just happen overnight. But it's taking that time to build it. Rather than asking yourself, can I? Take the time to really just do the work. And the internal work, it's internal work. It's internal work. So let's talk a little bit about the steps we could take in your own personal experience. So it always starts with your own value system. So you have to ask yourself, what do I value? And for a lot of people, if you're not sure what you value, write down your complaints. Write down your complaints. What are you not happy with? With the people around you, with what you've been given, right? Just sit down with, like, what are, if you're not satisfied with something, write them down. And maybe, just maybe, you were put on this earth to fix those things, rather than pointing them out and creating blame in the sense of the deficiency of what you didn't get. You being able to see that is you being able to change that. And that change doesn't mean going out there and calling out the people that aren't doing their quote unquote job. Because I always say, nobody owes us anything. Everything, every gesture, every engagement, every time somebody decides to be kind to us, it's a gift. Nobody owes us anything. But if we have it within ourselves to change something, it starts from changing it from within. Because in that moment, Pinchas was able to stop a Magefa. He was able to stop people from dying, right? He actually paused something major. By doing one act, it shifted everything. And if he would sit, just think about some of the stuff that we think, if we're not worthy or we're not good enough, or can we, if we sit with all of those thoughts, we're never going to be able to do anything. But if we approach it from a space of, I'm going to do the best I can with what I have, right? Every single one of us was given a set of skills. And sometimes the rejection, the lack of acceptance in certain areas, whatever that lack that you're feeling or you have felt or experienced or are trying to heal, sometimes you are the key to allowing that to enter into the world. And about I'd say, I think it was, about 10 years ago. 10 years ago, when I was really struggling with this, we all have our little midlife crises, and we get to a point where everything comes to a head, where we get complete clarity. We're standing in a moment where we can see the future and the past, and it just all merges together. And I got a lot of clarity, and I noticed what was missing, right? Obviously, I was doing the work. I was doing the work, showing up every day and doing the best I can with what I had, right? Or what I was given. And it's like building muscle. You build muscle, and then all of a sudden one day you can carry a very, very heavy load. And it's like, how? And it's because of the little bits of muscle you were able to build every day. And I got this clarity. I got this real clarity, and it was a very painful clarity of my reality in a certain sense, as in there's a lot of wonderful things that I had. And there's this one area where I was like, oh, okay, this is hard, and it's going to be a long road, and I don't have the skill set for this. I wasn't built for this. And I always say, sometimes, the tools that worked for us when we were in our teens sometimes don't work in our 20s and onward. So as I moved into my 30s, I realized that I really needed a new set of skills. So I took a deep breath, and there was a lot of resentment and anger that showed up because I was frustrated. I was frustrated with myself for not being able to see it, and I was frustrated with the people around me, right? But going back to everybody does the best with what they can, I started to learn that and discover really that if they don't see it and I see it, it's my job to create it, right? So b'makom she'ein bo ish, right? So they say, in a place that there isn't a man, put in the effort to be that human, right? We can go back to that human. So step into the space where you don't see something. So I made a commitment to myself in that moment that I would try to fall in love with every day, no matter what happened. That means no matter how hard the day would be, I was going to try to fall in love with it and find something really beautiful and amazing in it. But the end game for me was, the clarity that I had was that it's my job to begin to manifest those feelings that I feel like I didn't receive. So this sense of love and abundance, that wasn't something that was familiar to me, as in it was something I craved. There was an inner guide, as in when we're born, each of us have our desires and our natures. They're natural, they're almost, it's like a natural GPS we're going in that direction no matter what. So I could have stood and said, okay, I'm not getting this, and be really frustrated about it and try to get somebody to give me what I'm not getting, which I tried at some point. Didn't work. Where everything changed was when I realized that it was up to me to create that. And that came from within. And that came with back to the Midos perspective of measuring. I had to start measuring, what is love? What is abundance? What is kindness? And like the swordsman, it's operating from that internal, the soul space. And when we take that time to really build on that and articulate what it is that you have, like, the hardest thing is to really accept that the thing we want from somebody else is within us, and is our job to bring it out. Because that's like, I see this more often than not, the resentment that we'll have and the ask of someone else for something is really our journey and ours to bring out. So then building the confidence within and the trust and the muscle, right? So obviously it's like there's a vision, and that vision is really big, and those muscles need to be built slowly. So when we're seeing the whole picture, we're seeing this fully manifested experience when the pieces haven't been put into place yet. For us to get there, for us to be that person, it's the day-to-day practice of beginning to build. So I always say, like, everybody wants to build something else, and they have permission to, in the sense that as long as there's consistency and accuracy. So, you have a bodybuilder, ballerina, a yogi, a runner. Just notice what it is that you are wanting to discover and build within yourself. And just ask yourself, what are those consistencies that need to be put in for me to get there? What are the practices that we can achieve to help us achieve those goals and become that person? And the doubt that shows up is genuine. But if you stop for a moment and think about yourself 10 years ago, think about the person you were 10 years ago, and think about if the person of 10 years ago could meet this person today, just notice the magnitude of evolution that happened within yourself within those 10 years. And that person would not be able to carry today. Today was built off of muscle and work and effort and a lot of siyata d'shmaya. So coming back to Pinchas, for him to perform in that space, for him to be able to act without thinking, in the sense of, he didn't think of what anyone else would think of him. He didn't think of the consequences even. But because he's built the muscle, he was able to act, right? Intuitively act and change the course of history for the better and save many, many lives. Those muscles are built one day at a time, one practice at a time. But it starts with the preparation. So take the time to build on that. Take the time to reflect and ask yourself if that is something you value personally. And if it is, this practice is always available to you. Thank you so much for joining me in this practice today. And I hope you are all enjoying your summer. Have a beautiful, beautiful Shabbos.